And I thought it would be an appropriate time to talk about the afternoon slump. You know, that feeling you get after lunch when you're forced to sit in a meeting and you're falling asleep. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Sarah, and I hope each and every one of you is having an absolutely fantastic day. Thank you so much for tuning in for another video. We have just finished up the Thanksgiving holiday here in the United States, so for those of you who celebrate, I hope you very much enjoyed your holiday. I hope you were able to connect with family and friends, and moreover, I hope that you were able to spend at least a little bit of time over this long weekend to try to rest and recuperate, maybe decompress a little bit from 2020, right? I mean, it's 2020. And I know a lot of you, like me, are returning to the grind this week. Work, school, parental responsibilities, all that adulting stuff that we really, really love so much, right? And I thought it would be an appropriate time to talk about the afternoon slump. You know, that feeling you get after lunch when you're forced to sit in a meeting and you're falling asleep, and then you're trying to figure out if your boss is exceptionally boring or you're just an asshole. Well, both of those things might be true, but it's generally the afternoon slump that is to blame. So I want to talk about what causes the afternoon slump, and I want to give you 8 tips as to how you can potentially beat the afternoon slump so you can be as productive as humanly possible. So let's get right into it. What causes the afternoon slump? So there are a number of things that can cause you to have low energy during the day. Sleep is a huge factor, right? If you're only getting 3 or 4 hours of sleep in the night, you can't expect to have the greatest amount of energy during the day. Your exercise and training load could be very high, and that can drain you very much physically so that you don't have the highest amount of energy during your days. Nutrition, if you're short on calories or short on nutrients, can cause low energy during the day. And these are pretty obvious cause and effect types of things, but there's a pretty standard pattern in the afternoon slump, which is why it's called the afternoon slump, and there's a direct cause that is the circadian rhythm. Now, you've probably heard the term circadian rhythm, and you may even be familiar with how it works, but I want to kind of go through how the circadian rhythm functions and why you can see some patterns when it comes to the afternoon slump, and then we'll go into how you can potentially assuage those issues. So you can kind of think of the circadian rhythm as a series of your body's subsystems or background processes, all these things that run in the background that you're not consciously aware of that are supporting your brain functions and your body function, all those biological needs that you don't actually have to think about. And they run in a series of cycles, and the most common one of those cycles that we're going to be concerned with is the sleep-wake cycle. And as you can imagine, the sleep-wake cycle runs on close to a 24-hour timeline, and it's very predictable, and it generally aligns itself for most people with the rise and fall of the sun, or our rotation around the sun. And what's happening over the course of this 24 hours is that the body is releasing cortisol, melatonin, and modulating your core body temperature to manage the amount of energy expenditure during the course of the day, so that you are able to continue to function as a productive human being. So you can think about when you wake up in the morning as kind of the initiation of this cycle. Wake up at 6, 7, 8, even 9 o'clock in the morning, and your core body temperature is going to start to rise and cortisol is going to start to be released. Your alertness continues to increase until you reach late morning where it hits its peak. That's where your energy and your ability to focus is going to be at its highest thus far. Now, after that peak, you're going to start to see a little bit of a decline in your alertness, and then by 1 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you're going to be at a bit of a valley in terms of alertness and energy. That's why you feel this slump, this overwhelming need to maybe fall asleep or decompress. It's a biological function of your core temperature starting to drop down, which is kind of a signal that you're ready for rest. After a little bit of time, a couple of hours at that valley, you're going to start to see your core body temperature rise a little bit again. You're going to hit another peak that's as high, if not higher than it was in late morning, and that's going to usually occur around the dinner hour, between maybe 4 and 6 o'clock p.m. And this is an interesting construct because a lot of folks like to do their workouts first thing in the morning, and it sets the tone for their day and generally gives them a lot of energy, but there's a lot of science to support the fact that your best performance is actually done later in the day. So 4, 5, 6 o'clock, you're going to be at your peak alertness and peak energy. After you've kind of hit that peak, again, your core body temperature starts to drop off a little bit again, and then melatonin will start to be released, which will signify the body is ready for actual sleep. So somewhere between maybe 8 o'clock and 11 o'clock p.m., you'll be at the point where sleep inertia has gotten to the point where you can actually fall asleep. Now, you'll fall asleep, and after several hours of your body temperature continuing to drop off, you will hit your absolute lowest point point of alertness, which is going to be between 1 and 3 o'clock a.m., about 12 hours after your first small valley in the late afternoon hours. And it doesn't typically matter that your alertness is low because most of us are asleep during those hours. That's where you hit your deepest sleep and your REM sleep cycles, and then slowly your body temperature will start to rise as you approach the morning hour and you approach your wake up time, and the entire cycle starts again. It's a very predictable cycle. It happens to everybody, and it probably should come as a relief to a lot of you that that dip in energy you feel in the late afternoon is not 100% your fault. But there are things that you can do to pretty much ameliorate all of the side effects of having that low energy so that it doesn't detract from your ability to function during the day. So I'm going to go through 8 tips one by one. Some of them might seem obvious, some of them not so much, and hopefully you'll be able to take 1, 2, or all 8 of these and bring it into your routine so that you can maximize on your energy during the day and be as productive as you possibly can. So the first tip that I have for you is to get better sleep. Now don't confuse this one. I'm not necessarily telling you to get more sleep. More sleep can certainly improve things for you, and there's definitely a set point for an optimal amount of sleep that you need to get. But don't sit here and think that, well, I just can't get 8, 9, 10 hours of sleep because I don't have the time in my schedule, that you can't use these tips. The importance in your sleeping patterns is the quality more than the quantity. It doesn't matter how many hours you're in bed. You can be in bed for 10 hours, and if you're not getting quality sleep, you're not going to do any better than somebody who's getting 6 hours of sleep. And if you want to hear more about the science of sleep, there's an excellent book called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker that goes through in great detail all the science and research behind sleep and what's actually happening to your body when you don't get the quality sleep. It's a very compelling read. I recommend checking it out, and I will go ahead and link that down below if you guys want to check that out after the video. But I have a few tips for you in regards to sleep that can help you to maximize on the quality for those hours that you can spend in bed. So the first thing is, a lot of people have figured out that you shouldn't be drinking coffee too close to bedtime, right? Seems like common sense, but what a lot of people get wrong is drinking alcohol too close to bedtime. You may think as a depressant, alcohol is making you feel drowsy, it might help you to fall asleep faster, which is certainly the case, but it actually disrupts your sleep cycles. So while you've fallen asleep, you're not actually engaging in your full deep and REM sleep cycles, which can be absolutely damaging, and you can wake up more tired than you fell asleep. So if you're going to drink alcohol in the evening, try to pull it at least 1 hour before your bedtime, if not earlier. Maybe try to drink it with your evening meal so that you can use the food to help metabolize and absorb that alcohol. Or if you're winding down watching some TV, just try not to drink too close to bedtime. Let your body start to metabolize some of that alcohol before you try to go to sleep. The second thing is to lower your core body temperature. You might be like me and do your workouts later in the evening hours, somewhere around dinner time. That spikes up your core temperature quite a bit, and lowering your body temperature will help to send signals to the brain that it's time for rest. So you can do that in a couple of ways. You can use something like a warm shower rather than a hot shower. You can eat ice cream or something cold that you enjoy that will bring your core body temperature down a little bit. You can set up your room so it's a little bit cooler. Optimal sleeping temperatures are usually a little bit below comfortable room temperature for most folks. Some cooling sheets, a cooling blanket, maybe a fan, or even an air conditioner. All of those things can help to lower your core body temperature so that you can start to initiate that sleep cycle a little bit faster for yourself. The next thing is practicing good sleep hygiene when it comes to your screens and your distractions. I know that everybody has heard all of the science around blue lights and having those screens near you before bedtime, which disrupts your sleep. But the other thing that comes with that is kind of the stimulation of your brain. You can wear the blue light glasses all you want, but if you are scrolling through social media and you get something that's agitating you or exciting you in some way, or you're reading something compelling, the brain is too stimulated to fall asleep. So it's usually a good practice to keep those screens away from your bed if at all possible. If you use your phone for something like an alarm, maybe just plug it in across the room so in the morning you just have to get up and turn the alarm off and you're ready to go for the day. But I know that I have a hard time with this sometimes. I can't resist grabbing my phone to look something up real quick. So I try to keep my phone away from my bed. The other thing that you might be able to do if you're too tempted to use your phone and, I have to look this up before I forget, keep a little scratch pad next to your bed on your nightstand or something. If you think of something you want to look up, write it down with pen and paper, and then you can still look it up in the morning and have not forgotten about it between your sleeping hours and your waking hours. TVs are a good example. A lot of people need TV to fall asleep. The kind of research is out on whether or not it helps you to fall asleep. But what I would recommend is if you do need your TV on to fall asleep, I would set a sleep timer on it. So that way, a few hours later, when you're already asleep. A loud sound or flickering isn't going to disrupt your sleep cycles. Even if you're not aware of it, those things can impact or hamper your ability to rotate through your sleep cycles. So just turn that on for an hour or whatever you think you need, and then the TV shuts off and there's no way it's going to wake you up in the middle of the night. Animals, furry friends. We all love to have our furry friends playing around with us in our beds. We love them. They are parts of our family. But maybe make them a little bit of a bed in the room so that they're not jumping up and down from the bed and waking you up throughout the night. There are a number of different distractions and interruptions that you might be facing overnight that you're not aware of that can hamper your sleep. Do your best to mitigate those things. And the last thing is to try to go to sleep and wake up around the same time every day, even on your days off. So if you're falling asleep at 9 o'clock at night and waking up at 5 a.m. Monday through Friday, but then you're staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning and sleeping till 10 o'clock in the morning on Saturdays and Sundays, you're not allowing your body to adapt to a stable rhythm, and that's going to throw off your circadian rhythm, especially in the beginning of the week. So if you can try to stay within a window of an hour or two in terms of bedtime and wake time every single day, your body's energy will be a lot more stable than if you're just kind of all over the road. I know that's a little bit more difficult for shift workers out there, but do the best that you can to try to create a window for yourself so that you can stabilize that sleeping pattern. In addition to that is to try to figure out what your sleep cycle length is so that you can pick the appropriate bedtime. If you use something like a Whoop or a Garmin watch, something that's actually tracking your sleep cycles, after time you start to notice some patterns. You might find that your full sleep cycle is 94 minutes. That way you can use some of these calculators now to start at your waking time and work backwards to figure out what the best time is to go to sleep so that you're pretty much waking up naturally without needing an alarm. You can kind of set an alarm as a backup, but it's easier to wake up as you're not interrupting a sleep cycle. If you're waking up in the middle of REM sleep to your alarm, you're going to have a lot of sleep inertia and exhaustion and drowsiness going into your day. If you can wake up at the end of a sleep cycle, you're going to have a lot more energy. Even if you have fewer sleep cycles than the day prior, as long as you're not interrupting them, your energy will be a lot better. On that note, hitting the snooze button can be extremely damaging. You might want that extra couple of minutes of sleep, but I would highly recommend against it because every time you fall back asleep for those 9 minutes, you are reinitiating a sleep cycle. And while it might feel like you're getting an extra few minutes of sleep, now you've just interrupted another sleep cycle, which is going to exacerbate that feeling of sleep inertia. So once you're up, just get up, get out of bed, jump out, do whatever you need to do, splash some cold water on your face. It might be tough in the very beginning, but you'll thank me later when you haven't hit the snooze button 3 times and you feel a lot more tired than you would have if you just woke up. The second tip is to ditch the afternoon coffee. So many people rely on just a non-stop stream of coffee throughout the day to keep their energy at a manageable level. But what people might not realize is that the half-life of caffeine is about 7 hours. So if you drink that cup of coffee at 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon with 100 to 150 milligrams of caffeine in it, at 8, 9 o'clock at night, there's still about 75 milligrams of coffee or caffeine left in your system. That's a lot of caffeine still coursing around the bloodstream while you're trying to fall asleep. And even if you have fallen asleep, now we're talking about 7 hours later, which is in the middle of the night, you still have 35 milligrams of caffeine coursing through your bloodstream, which is going to interrupt your sleep cycles, even if you're not aware of it. Now, mileage may vary in terms of caffeine sensitivity. Some people can drink coffee right up until 8 o'clock at night and still be able to fall asleep, but there is some research to indicate that that caffeine in the system still disrupts the quality of your sleep, even though you have been able to initiate those sleep cycles when you fall asleep. But there is some good alternatives to that. As I mentioned, core body temperature is very much aligned with our alertness and that rise and fall in energy. A lot of what you get from coffee in the afternoon is actually from the warm temperature of the liquid. So you can actually replace the coffee with something like an herbal or decaffeinated tea, or even just a hot water with lemon, and get a lot of the same effects as drinking a cup of coffee. So try a warm beverage in the afternoon and you will get the same energy surge as you might get from a cup of coffee, because most of that energy isn't necessarily coming from the caffeine, it's coming from that rise in body temperature around a time that you critically need it. The third tip is to embrace hydration. Hydration is directly correlated to energy levels. Try to get in the habit of having some kind of water or sparkling water, whatever you enjoy, somewhere nearby so that you can sip at it throughout the day. A lot of people are reticent to drink during the day because it will increase their bathroom habits, and that's altogether inconvenient. But think of that as an opportunity to get up and reset, get the blood flowing. You'll actually be a lot more productive taking those smaller interruptions throughout the day to take that mental reset. When you get that blood moving, you start to raise that core body temperature, temperature a little bit instead of being glued to your desk. Take those bathroom breaks as actually a bit of a gift and an increase in your productivity and your energy. Tip number 4 is to shun the sugars. There's nothing the body craves more than those quick, cheap, easy sugar sources when we are a little bit low on energy. And typically those cheap, easy sugar sources come with a very fast boost of energy, but followed by a precipitous crash once those sugars are metabolized. Now, our energy level throughout the day is almost directly correlated with our blood sugar levels. So managing your nutrition to modulate those blood sugar levels are critically important if you want nice, even energy through those productive hours of the day. Now, as athletes, many people are reliant on those carbohydrate sources. And while they are important, they tend to be very sugar rich. So there's a couple of things that you can do to help do a little bit better in terms of your slower release, long-term energy. First, incorporate more protein, especially earlier in the day. We're not talking about massive amounts here, but if you can incorporate more protein, it will help with slow release energy. It will also help with satiety and cravings, so you're not reaching for too many carbohydrates. The other thing is when you are leaning on those carbohydrates, make sure that they're complex carbohydrates. They're gonna break down a little bit slower for you, give you the longer, slow release energy, and then you can carb up with more short-term sugar sources when you are moving into your workouts. However you choose to manage your nutrition, being able to get a nice level blood sugar throughout the day is going to be absolutely game-changing in terms of managing your energy levels. Tip number 5 is to get your body moving. Now, this may not be feasible for everybody, but if you are able to architect your schedule in a manner that allows you to get a workout during those afternoon hours or take a walk on your lunch break, either one of those is going to facilitate a greater deal of energy because you're going to be able to raise your core body temperature, you're going to be able to get your blood moving, those endorphins pumping, all of those great things that help to instigate more energy in the body, and it's going to be at a critical point of the day where you're going to be able to return back to your productivity with a higher level of energy. Tip number 6, which also can be construed as an alternative to tip number 5, is to be able to take a nap. A lot of people swear by the 20 or 30 minute long cat nap. They feel like a brand new person after they're done. Maybe you can put your head down on your desk during your lunch hour or go put your seat back in your car. Whatever you can do to hit that reset button. It does have a lot of merit to it. In fact, Spain still has the siesta as a major component of their culture because they understand the differences in energy throughout the day. They allow people to go home, reset, fuel up, and come back energized so that they are more productive in the long run. A lot of the most successful people in the world use things like cat naps in the middle of the day to come back refreshed with a greater deal of energy and productivity. Now, this will not work for everybody. I'm one of those people for whom cat naps do not work. If I am tired enough to fall asleep for a nap, then I'm typically going to be down for 2 to 3 hours. And if I force myself awake between those 20 and 30 minutes, I generally have a great deal of drowsiness and sleep inertia built up, and it ends up being more detrimental in the long run. It's going to depend on you and your physiology and how you react to those types of things, but it is certainly worth a try as something that can get you through the afternoon slump. Tip number 7 is to get in those vitamins. Now, I just did a video the other day about a greens powder I've been taking over the past 90 days or so that helps to supercharge my system with some vitamins and has some positive impacts on my energy in the afternoon. But you don't need to take a greens powder. You just need to understand that your vitamin levels in your body have a direct impact on your energy levels throughout the day. Two vitamins, vitamin D and B12, have a very direct correlation to energy levels, and it's actually been proven that the majority of people, even in the first world, have deficiencies in terms of vitamins D and B12. We're not talking about cataclysmic failure here. We're not talking about making them sick deficiencies, but they are low. And even being low in vitamins D and B12 can cause some severe decline in your energy. What I would recommend is that periodically with your doctor, it's just a good practice to get your blood panels checked. Check where your vitamins and mineral levels are. And if you do find some deficiencies, you can come up with a supplementation plan or a dietary plan with your physician to help you get you back on track, and you can find that you might be a completely different person in terms of your energy. And the 8th and final tip I have for you is to get focused. You might not have the opportunity to go for a walk or do a workout or take that 20 or 30 minute nap in the middle of the day, but what you typically can do is to schedule your very intensive or important tasks for that block of time during the day. It might seem counterintuitive that you wouldn't want to be doing your critical tasks where your alertness or your mental acuity might be at its lowest, but the reverse is actually true. By engaging your brain, you're going to facilitate a higher level of energy and engagement, and that will kind of ride you through that afternoon slump until you're back on the upswing again. I know that nothing I've provided here for you is a quick fix or anything exceptionally mind-blowing. I can't give you something that you're going to buy that will make you the most productive version of yourself and you're just going to be on fire all the time. There are no shortcuts, at least not ones that are going to be without long-term detriments. You just need to understand the science behind your body, the physiological responses to your circadian rhythm, and work with your body and its systems so that you can help to maybe bring up that valley a little bit, so that you can mitigate the less than ideal effects that you're going to have with that lowered alertness in the mid-afternoon. But let me know if you guys have something that you've included in your daily routine that helps you to offset the afternoon slump. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, leave them down below. I would love to engage with you guys more down there. If you got any value out of this video, please take the time to hit that thumbs up button. It really is very helpful to, telling the algorithm here on YouTube that, some people like my stuff. Sometimes I'm amusing and say things that aren't entirely stupid. Subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, I will catch you guys in the next one. See ya.